Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Well, it's Clown Car Tuesday with the king of the clown car now leading the parade. Donald Trump is now soaring in the Republican polls, well above Jeb Bush and all the others. The only question, who's going to take him on? Which Republican is going to risk a face-off with the guy and challenge with it the old rule to never get into a peeing match with a skunk, or in this case with Donald Trump? Today, Trump tramped into South Carolina and pulled his old number of picking a fight, this time with the local man, Lindsey Graham, who showed just what happens when you take a jab at the P.T. Barnum of 21st century American politics. Steve Schmidt was the senior advisor to John McCain's 2008 presidential campaign. Michael Steele was RNC chair, and Joan Walsh is the editor-at-large with Salon, all our MSNBC political analysts. Anyway, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who is good friends with Senator John McCain, is going after Trump.
That he's a jackass. He's becoming a jackass at a time when we need to have a serious debate about the future of the party and the country.
Well, today Trump traveled to Graham's home turf in South Carolina and jabbed back.
I see your senator. What a stiff. What a stiff. Lindsey Graham. By the way, he's registered 0 in the polls. 0. He's on television all the time. A total lightweight. Here's a guy in the private sector. He couldn't get a job, believe me. Couldn't get a job. And then I watched this idiot Lindsey Graham on television today, and he calls me a jackass. He's a jackass.
Anyway, that was just the beginning of Trump's attack today. Watch what happens next.
Then I said to myself, hey, didn't this guy call me like 4 years ago? Yes. He called me 4 years ago, 4 years ago. Lindsey Graham, I didn't even know who he was. He goes, Mr. Trump, this is Senator Lindsey Graham. I wonder if it would be possible for you to call Fox. And he wanted to know whether or not I could give him a good reference on Fox and Friends, okay? What's this guy, a beggar? He's like begging me to help him with Fox and Friends. So I say, okay, and I'll mention your name. He said, could you mention my name? I said, yes, I'll mention. And he gave me his number, and I found the card. I wrote the number down. I don't know if it's the right number. Let's try it. 202. So, I don't know, give it a shot. Your local politician, you know? He won't fix anything, but at least he'll talk to you.
You know, and he really did, Trump really did give away Senator Graham's private email address, or phone number, actually, his private phone number. He actually did it. Graham tweeted back, quote, probably getting a new phone. His camp also put out a statement, that's Graham's, and a fundraising plea saying, Donald Trump continues to show hourly that he is ill-prepared to be commander-in-chief. Well, anyway, I don't know where to begin, but I'll start with you, Michael Steele, former chair of the Republican National Committee. It wasn't quite as much fun when you were chair. You did win a lot of elections.
We never had this kind of excitement.
What are the other Repubs doing now when they're thinking about this? Nobody's paying any attention to people like Ben Carson. They're all disappearing.
None of them are happy. There's no one right now in the Republican leadership or candidates running for office who are happy right now. We're seeing the opening of every newscast, every show with Donald Trump. And if you, leading into this debate in 2 weeks' time, if this is the continual motion, the level of frustration on that stage is going to be so high, you will cut it with a knife, and anything could happen. The explosion could be monumental because they're frustrated. They don't know how to get in front of the story. They don't know how to create their own news because every microphone in their face is, Donald Trump said. Lindsey Graham is raising money off it. God bless him. He's taking advantage of it. He's loving that opportunity. But there comes a point where it's a drag, and the question is, how long does the drag continue?
You know, Steve Schmidt, I can't wait to hear you because I'm thinking if you're driving a good-looking car down the street and somebody's got a junker coming at and they start getting into little bumping matches with you, say, I'm going to lose this one because his car's already a junker. Mine's going to be one. If you get into a match with that guy Trump right now, do you lose automatically?
No, Chris. Look, I think this is the ultimate character test for the other 15 candidates that are in the race. This is not conservatism. This is not what the Republican Party should be about. This has to be confronted. Tomorrow, Rick Perry has announced that he's going to give a speech that does just that. We will see the candidates who have the guts, who have the courage to lead, to communicate to Republicans that this is not the toxic path that we want to go down. This is opposite the virtues of goodness embodied in men like Ronald Reagan and Dwight Eisenhower and Abraham Lincoln and the giants that have sat as members of our party in the seat of the presidency of the United States.
But that's what it could have, should have, because right now Trump is leading your party in the polls, and rather dramatically. He's way ahead of Jeb, who everybody knows who Jeb Bush is. Everybody knows him. Yeah. And they choose Trump over him in the polls. What do you make of that? Because that's the reality of the day.
You have covered American politics for a very long time. You are a historian.
Nothing like this.
You know that these numbers, don't mean an awful lot at this moment in time in the polls. You know, we cover this like a thoroughbred horse race. There's a long way to go. We live in a time when trust is completely collapsed in nearly every institution in the country. People are fed up. They don't think the system's on the level. They don't think the political class is on the level. And he is in the tradition of the Roman emperors. This is bread and circuses for the masses. And I don't think that this will prevail, that it will last, but we'll see.
Joan, I just want to ask you a non-ideological question. I want to ask you a non-ideological question, Joan, because I want your sharp. In this battle, who is the fastest on their feet? Name any of the Republicans, forget ideology or anything, who's faster on their feet than Trump? In other words, when they get in that debate in a couple of weeks, and Trump pounds them again and again, they take a shot, he shots back. He shoots back. He's never going to let them get the last word.
Chris Christie, this should be a good moment for Chris Christie. Lindsey Graham's shown he's fast on his feet. I think he's doing himself a lot of favors, but he doesn't have much to lose. I just want to take issue with something Steve's saying. I agree it's early, and I don't think Democrats should get their hopes up. He's not going to be the nominee. But there's one thing that's very different from 2012. 2012, everybody took a turn. Herman Cain was at the top. The thing we also said about 2012, though, was that was a terrible field. It had a bunch of people and Mitt Romney. Nobody was ever going to break out except Mitt Romney. This is a dream field for the Republican Party, right? We've got sitting governors. We've got at least 4. We've got 4 senators. I mean, it should be tailor-made for a great year against supposedly Hillary Clinton, and they can't get out. They can't get out of their own way because of Donald Trump. So I think it's a little. I know Steve's worried, and I totally agree. I am so happy Steve is saying what he's saying, but I don't know how many people are listening because they're scared of this man.
I'm not afraid of anything here, Michael, and I'm going to be like Stephen. I'm not afraid. The American people are paying attention to this. The same vote they get in any other poll, they're giving to him. For whatever reason, they're sending a message. They want to hear more from this guy right now. What do they want to hear? That's what I want to know.
And what they want to hear is what he's giving them, and that is something that whether you like it or not, whether it's inside the Beltway or not, it's irrelevant. It's authenticity for these folks out there across the country who finally found someone who's saying what they feel. And
what is that?
Well,
what is that?
I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm sick and tired of these guys pontificating on what they're going to do when they have the chance to do something. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the momentum. And you look at where he's gone in just a week's time, where the gap between him and Jeb Bush, I mean, it's 24-16. I mean, that's not something.
Let's take a look at the fight. Steve, you previewed this. Donald Trump also took a personal shot today at former Texas Governor Rick Perry, who has called Trump a toxic demagogue. Here's Trump.
I see Rick Perry the other day, and he's so, he's doing very poorly in the polls. He put glasses on so people will think he's smart. And it just doesn't work. People can see through the glasses. But he's got the glasses, the whole deal. Trump, I say he did a lousy job on the border. But I see him, he's so vicious. He used to be really a nice guy. He used to come to see me for contributions and support. All of a sudden, he wants to show he's a tough guy with Trump. So tough. So I tweeted that Rick Perry should have to have an IQ test before getting on the debate stage.
So Governor Perry's going to get into a fight with this guy. How's it going to win for him? I don't get it. Go ahead, Steve.
Look, this is a test. This is a moment of testing for all these candidates inside the Republican Party. Joan talked about this through the prism of this not being good, obviously, for the Republican Party. This isn't good for the country, and it's not good for the Democratic Party. Because you can be the most liberal person in the Democratic Party in a country with a two-party system. You need both political parties to be healthy. And this anger that he is channeling is real. I understand that people across this country are upset. They have a right to be upset about a number of different issues and reasons. But this anger is not what the conservative movement in the Republican Party should be about. And it's so opposite the virtues and character of our last great conservative president, Ronald Reagan. on whose tomb is inscribed in my heart.
Hey, Steve, but
I
can
know
I
this man
absolutely,
is good.
I agree with
Hey,
Steve.
Steve.
I agree with Steve completely that this is not good for the Democratic Party either, and it's terrible for the country because this is the kind of hate. I mean, he started on President Obama. He rode the birther wave. He whipped up that frenzy about the president really wasn't born here. He's not eligible. We haven't seen his college grades. Then he went on to Mexican immigrants. He's playing not just to frustration, but to sometimes racism and to a real kind of nihilism about the political process. That's not good for Democrats. It's definitely not good for the country.
But you're right. But Jeff, make a point here, because you have two Republicans on the show. When he was making fun of the president saying he was an illegal alien, that he was secretly born in Kenya, there was no roar of disapproval from the Republican Party.
No, there wasn't.
You guys enjoyed that clown act. You enjoyed it, not you personally, but the party enjoyed that.
Chris, there was certainly disapproval on that from the two Republicans you have on this show today. I said it was despicable then, it was wrong then, it was racist. It undermines the legitimacy of the duly elected commander-in-chief. It was wrong, and Republicans should have repudiated it, and we paid a price for it, and to some degree we're reaping what we sowed by a feckless political class that didn't call it out.
But exactly what I'm going to say at the end of the show, because that is the terrible, it's a tragic reality. Let's call it that. The Republican Party, they giggled in their back seats while he was talking about all this birther crap, loving it because it helped to bring down the president. It helped to miniaturize him. The whole plan, it helped with the burdening of this guy. He could take it, by the way, but it put all more burdens on his shoulder that have to come out and show your papers like some South African flag. I got to show my papers. I'm legal here. That was ridiculous, and that was Trump. And he bragged about forcing the president, like they stopped him in the car. Let's see your license, President of the United States. And that miniaturization of his persona was part of the Republican plan, and everybody loved it when it was working for the party. Now you see the clown act writ large, and he's going after your own people. So, tut, 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 we shouldn't have Donald Trump in our midst. Well, you got him. Steve Schmidt, thank you. Thank you, Michael Steele. Thank you, John Walsh. You're all smart tonight.